Waves just released Curves EQ, which is an automatic equalizer. It uses machine learning to automatically analyze your music and your audio and determine a bunch of really good go-to presets. And the equalization happens in real time and it's dynamic with the music that you're using. So in this video, I want to compare it to another product that's out there called Gullfoss. So we'll compare the sound that Waves EQ has on the master bus of a finished track when you're trying to get it ready for release, and compare that to Gullfoss. And then just for fun, I'll also do some EQ just to show what my approach would sound like. I have links to all these products in the description. And while you're down there, be sure to grab my free mixing cheat sheet. It's going to give you my favorite go-to settings for pretty much everything you'll find in a song. This is a track by an artist called A Certain Energy that I mastered quite a while ago. I picked this track because it has a lot of different elements that are coming and going. It has a bunch of bass, and it has a vocal that is front and center. So it's be really easy to hear any artifacts that these plugins might have. So let me give you a little sample of it without any EQ on it.
There ain't no other way. Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah.
And to my ears, it sounds a little bit muddy in some spots. Maybe it could use a little bit of brightness and air. And there's also a little bit of this harshness around like the 2 to 3K range. So let's pull up Waves' new plugin, Curves EQ. Looks like this. Waves is crushing it with these like really nice looking GUIs. So the plugin itself, when you pull it up, looks pretty straightforward. And I have a deep dive video that goes over all the different features that I'm going to show you, but we're going to keep it very baseline in this video just so that we can get into it right away. So this can be adapted depending on what the source is, or you can use this to auto EQ a mix. So you have all these different genres to choose from. Basically, Waves develop target EQ profiles for these different genres by building out a machine learning model. What's cool about this is if you're not sure what to pick, you can just hit the learn button and it's going to figure it out for you. So you click learn, hit play.
It's that shit I really do. All your angles look obtuse. I ain't never worried about the constant competition. Never take a break and never take an intermission. I've been focused on my inner vision. Everybody inner driven, that 20.
And you can just stop it and we can see what we're working with. And like that, it's come up with a whole bunch of built-in presets that it thinks would help shape this song to these given targets that are common for hip-hop, for example, soul, and R&B. And after you click that learn button, it also unlocks a bunch of other features down here. So now we have the ability to adjust the dynamic versus static EQ mixing. This plugin, like I said, will adjust the EQ frequencies in real time, and sometimes it can feel a little bit too washy or have too much movement. And so you can kind of pin that down by sliding this more to static, and we'll get into that later. These allow you to change the maximum amount of gain reduction that's occurring in these different bands or the amount of boosting that's occurring. Overall, you can change just to level the effect from going 0 to 100 here. And then there's a few different options here that allow you to make some refinements to the overall target. So if you want to add a little bit more air, that's what this A stands for, you can just click and adjust this. And the target will also update to kind of have a little bit more air in the mix. This is the main harmonics of the track. This is the fundamental. So if you're trying to help enhance the groove or the foundation of the mix, you can adjust it here, and then this is like the sub-energy. And they offer this tilt feature, which allows us to basically correct the overall skew of the mix. So if it's just feels a little bit too dark, for example, you can just very easily adjust that to make it more bright. Or if it was too brittle and you want more bass, you can just tilt it this way, and then this left and right changes the crossover point for you automatically. This offset basically locks in this tilt, but just kind of shifts it around in the frequency space so that you can kind of avoid certain things like a kick drum or snare drum, or maybe shift it away from a fundamental or something. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty details, we can go to the advanced controls. This allows us to adjust attack, release, and precision. Precision just basically changes the number of bands. It's going to make it really, really fine adjustments. I highly recommend staying away from using high values for this. It has a lot of artifacts, which I can show you. Release times, think of this as like a compressor, but like 1,000 compressors, right? So the release is going to act the same way. It's just going to be the amount of time it's either reducing or boosting the signal towards the target. Attack is the amount of time it needs to be below or above the target to then make the adjustment. And then they have other features like auto makeup gain, which I think is a great feature so you don't fool yourself into thinking that the EQ is better just because it might get louder. So this is going to offset the output gain to make it roughly the same level as the input. Limiter, they just have something on there just in case you're using this in the mastering sense like I'm showing this video. And two other really quick things I think are interesting is they allow you to change the balance, so you can actually change this to mid-side. So you can apply this automatic EQ either to the mid channel or the side channel. I think there's a cool use case if you slightly shift it into the mids. It kind of gives it a little bit more stereo width in my opinion. And then also they have a mix knob, which is awesome because usually what happens when you use these types of automatic AI tools is you overdo it. It just makes everything sound exciting right away. And so you're like, yeah, that's the sound I'm going for. And often you come back the next day and you're like, oh my God, it's way too bass heavy. Or, oh man, it's so trebly and bright. This allows you to just kind of chill out the effect overall. And so you can dial it in the way you like it and then rein it back a bit, pull it back to like 30% or 20%, just to kind of shift the mix a little bit into the flavor that you have with these defined presets that were generated from the AI model. So let's get into this. Let me show you what it sounds like without, and then I'll turn this on and we'll jump through the different presets and see if there's anything that we like. All right, here we go.
Satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning blade.
All right, so I've cranked this up to 100%. Let's see what it sounds like.
Wait, hold up, I'm like a nightmare on Elm Street. Trying to ride the wave, this is high seas. Always 10 toes, never froze. Push a start, do the most. Pennywise, I'm a flow. Everybody wants to smoke. Ain't nobody got the juice. Ain't nobody got a clue. This that shit I really do. All your angles look obtuse. I ain't never worried about the content competition. Never take a break and never take an intermission. I've been focused on my inner vision. Everybody in a driven, that 2020 collision. They can't compete with the limits. Rectify commitments, reestablish positions. Now they're trying to act. Always been about business. Always been about winning. Silent on their opinion. Take whatever's given. Make it there's an instant. Bentley got me.
So, in my opinion, the hip-hop one that generated first sounds a tiny bit boxy. I'm digging the air and the general control on the mids here. And then also this one I think sounds pretty good overall. So, what's really awesome about this is it kind of just gives you a very quick perspective on what your mix could sound like if you made these different target adjustments or different EQ choices. So let's jump between the two that I thought sounded the best, and then we'll refine it and then compare that to Gullfoss. Here we go.
Satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning blade. Always.
I really like what this one does to the lead vocal. It brings him forward in the mix. And I think that's exactly the kind of style that we want for this track. So once we've picked a preset, then we can kind of fine tune it, right? So there is a lot of air. I think it's maybe a little bit overbearing. So we can come in here and adjust our target to bring this down a little bit. So let's do that, making this adjustment on this A.
Be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke is
we can shift that air band over where we see all the boost happening. So anything that's red is a boost. So we can just kind of pull that down a little bit.
Dwelling in your head, calling shit some bass off. All lay out some hoes, always getting passed up. You're talking cheap, you'll spend your checks to breathe. You're basic like a bitch, siesta keys. I chase a mill, I gotta do it meek. You chase a bill, I bet.
Okay, that's sounding pretty good now. It's a little bit more controlled. It is, I'm getting a little bit of this boxiness that I didn't hear before in this section. So let's see what we can do by adjusting the fundamental and also the harmonics here to try to pull some of that bass back in a little bit.
Hit him with the blitz, call me Jack Ham. So cold, alter ego must be Jack Frost. Gotta take my mask off, hustle movement mascot. Constant with the drip, must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke is blast off. Dwelling in your head, calling shit some bass off. All lay out some hoes, always getting passed up. You're talking cheap,
okay. I think that's a little bit better. We can also add our own EQ nodes. So if there's something that we really are hearing, we just want to pull it out of the way, you can just double click on the spectrum and then manually adjust our target this way. I don't recommend doing this unless you can clearly identify what you want to do to the song, because this is a very, very powerful move and it can really throw off all the benefits of using a machine learning model to generate these presets that we have here. So this drastically is going to change the target. So just be very careful if you decide to use a node in your graphic equalizer.
cheap, you'll spend your checks to breathe. You're basic like a bitch, yeah. I chase a mill, I gotta do it me.
Just gonna make this a little bit wider here.
About your conscience, what you dream about, son, that I'm spinning now. Like while I talk, you think I'd have an accident. Always by my actions, never in the past.
There we go. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
In the past, hustling is all I ever practice. Bury me in green and I'm
So we'll back this down a little bit.
Motherfucking casket. You and I don't coincide in brackets. Take my mask off, hustle movement mascot. Constant with the drip, must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron.
It's a little bit too fluid for me. Like there's too much correction going on the entire time. So I'm gonna pull this more towards the static side here.
All on some hoes, what's getting passed up. It's talking cheap, you'll spend your checks to breathe. You're basic like a bitch, siesta key. About your conscience, what you dream about, son, that I'm spinning now. Like while I talk, you think I'd have an accent.
Awesome. That's sounding really, really good to me. So now we'll just fine tune it with the mix knob here.
So cold, alter ego must be jackpots. Gotta take my mask off, hustle movement mascot. Constant with the drip, must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke his blast off. Dwelling in your head, calling shit on bass off.
All right, let's hear a little before and after.
Ain't no other way. Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like that.
It's beautiful, man. It really cleaned it up, added a little sparkle on top. It sounded killer. Let me show you this one little thing with the balance set to mid and side. And let me shift it towards the middle. And what that's going to do is shift the equalization to more of the center channel, so the mono elements, and leave the stereo stuff alone. And what I find when I do that is it makes the mix kind of feel a little bit wider, a little bit more open and encompassing to the listener. So let me just pull this back and you can kind of hear the mix widen out. But we have to be very careful again because we want to make sure the image is still consistent with what we had originally. We don't want to make something super wide if that's not going to be what the artist intended.
Check the accolades on the modern stage, on a different stage, couldn't tell me otherwise, even if it's overplayed. I'm the shit like goddamn, hit him with the blitz, call me Jackham. So cold, alter ego must be jackpots, gotta take my mask off, hustle movement mascot. Constant with the drip, must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke his blast off. Dwelling in your head, calling shit on bass off. All on some hoes, what's getting passed off.
So you can kind of hear how it starts to widen out the mix. I'm not totally sold on it for this particular track because we do want this to be attenuating some of those muddy frequencies that are in the stereo information on the side channel. So if we were to use this, I would say let's only do like between 10 and 15 for the mid.
I bet you reach your peak. Curving on my wrist, it must be ice. The baddest that changes every night. What's the price if all I do is swipe? Ice so red, it's like the Antichrist.
That, to me, feels pretty good. Now, there are additional features, but again, if you want to go deep into what all those do, like all these fun little guys here, check out the video that I have released on my channel. And I'll put a link somewhere up here. So here is Gullfoss. This is what everybody's been using for like the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. This is basically the same idea as Waves EQ, except it just has a much simpler interface. It's a little bit less configurable, but because of that, I think it can also be beneficial because it won't allow you to screw something up too badly. So our options are recover, which basically is going to be like the amount of gain that we can boost in the signal. Tame is going to be basically how much we're going to be attenuating or reducing. So this is like the blue curves and this is like the red curves in Waves EQ. Bias basically adjusts the target so that you define the point at which it's going to boost versus attenuate. What I like to do is basically make this little yellow bar sit in the middle here, and that way it's going to be an even amount of boosting and attenuation. And then this boost is kind of like the tilt knob that we had in Waves EQ, where a larger value of boost is going to have a lot more sub energy. And then if you go the other way, the high frequencies get boosted and the sub gets rolled off. So let's see what it sounds like. Let's dial it in.
Like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving out like Gente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe. Acting like I never been paid. What a concept for take. Get the chips free to lays, man.
So you can look, there's these little yellow bars right here. As I move this bias up and down, you'll see that they kind of will move up and down along this vertical line. And I'm just going to try to get them so that they're centered around, you know, the middle part of this plugin.
Man, fuck a co-sign, man, I'm self-made. Through the whole 9, yet they throw shade. Check the accolades on the modern stage, on a different stage. Couldn't tell me otherwise, even if it's overplayed.
There we go. Okay, so now we're good there.
Hustle movement mascot. Constant with the drip, must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke his blast off. Dwelling in your head, calling shit on bass off.
A cool feature we have with Gullfoss is that we can actually grab these like little curtains here, and this is basically going to not allow the plugin to attenuate any of the really high frequencies here. So sometimes this will boost a lot of top end and people just don't want that. So you can actually just say, hey, ignore this region. Same with the subs. If we're working with hip hop or something bass heavy or kick drums, we don't want it to mess with it. Guess what? We can just slide this over and we're good to go. Cool.
All out some hoes always getting passed up. It's talking cheap, you'll spend your checks to breathe.
So if I do this, now those kicks aren't going to be boosted or cut at all. So if you want like a very punchy focused kick, maybe this is a good move.
Breathe, you're basic like a bitch, yes the keys. I chase a mill, I gotta do it meek. You chase a bill, I bet you reach your peak. Curving on my wrist, it must be ice. The baddest bitch.
I'm wanting a little more bass, so let's boost this up.
All I do is swipe. I so red, it's like the Antichrist. I don't give a fuck about your conscience. What you dream about, son, that I'm spinning now. Like while I talk, you think I'd have an accent. Always by my actions, never in the past tense.
Actually, that top end that it adds is kind of nice, but I feel like it's a little too bright, so I'm just gonna bring down the brighten down.
Hustling is all I ever practice. Bury me in green in that motherfucking casket. You and I don't coincide in brackets. We are not the same motherfucker, you just acting, yeah. Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah.
Okay, without it.
We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning blade. Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking.
I feel like the differences are a little bit more subtle with Gullfoss, but everything that it does is pretty much right on. I'm not wanting to make a lot more adjustments. I think it kind of just fixed any of the little rough edges that the mix had and just made it sound a little bit more polished. So now let me just make some quick EQ moves to kind of fix the problems that I'm hearing, and then we'll compare all three to each other. And I'm going to do this really quickly without explaining too much, just so we keep this moving.
All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way.
There's a little bit of mud right here. It sounds like pillowy to me.
Call me sensei, moving all like Gente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for take. Get the chips free to lays.
This spot right here is kind of like a caw kind of sound. I make that sound a lot in my EQ videos, but that's like when I hear that, I know it's right here.
Free to lays, man. Go sign, man, I'm self-made. Through the whole
right there. There's this like pointiness here in the 2K range.
Just to echo the drip must be leaking off sauce. Jimmy Neutron when I smoke his blast off. Rolling in your head, calling shit some bass off. All lay on some hoes, always getting passed up.
The only other thing I would do is I'm just gonna roll a tiny bit off the top end. That, and then I like to do this cool little air boost, where I just put it like 30K and then just widen it out just to kind of add this very gentle lift to the top end.
What you dream about, son, that I'm spinning now. Like while I talk, you think I'd have an accent. Always by my actions, never in the past tense. Hustling is all I ever practice. Bury me in green in that motherfucking casket. You and I don't coincide in brackets. We are not the same motherfucker, you just acting, yeah. Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking, better run and check your source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way.
All right, there it is. That is what I would do if I was EQing. So cleaned up a little bit of the low end, tighten it up, give it a little bit of extra sub energy to kind of lengthen those 808s. This helps increase the impact, the touch, clean up the boxiness, clean up that con sound. There, that was the pointiness of the vocal that was just killing me. It feels like an ice pick poking me in the eyes. And then I always like to roll off the top end a little bit and then do a little airlift. That's it. That's all you got to do, basically. So now what we can do, let's listen before and after the EQ.
Pull up in that foreign, no remorse. I ain't satisfied, I've been wanting more, yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't. Checks to breathe, you're basic like a bitch, yes the keys. I chase a mill, I gotta do it meek. You chase a bill, I bet you reach your peak.
All right, so now what we're gonna do is compare all these different things and see which one we like the most and see how the new Waves EQ compares to everything else. So let's start with just the original and then we'll go to the Waves EQ first.
We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all like Gente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for take.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah. yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech. Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't.
Seems to add a ton of top-end air. Let's check out Gullfoss.
Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech. Yeah.
Man, the Gullfoss is very subtle, but it fixes the issues that I'm hearing with the mix, with the boxiness, and it does it in a really nice musical way. And finally, let's see what my EQ decisions sound like.
Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech.
And then let's just jump around through the different plugins.
Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. Yeah. All that talking, better run and check the source. We don't play it like there ain't no other way. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech. That Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for that Kakashi lightning. Call me sensei, moving all I fire like Ente. Move behind the scenes like Dembe, acting like I never been paid. What a concept for tech.
So what did you think of this new AI automatic equalization plugin? Is this something that you could see using in your workflow? Did you think it sounded natural and actually helped the mix? Let me know in the comments below. Or if you thought that me just using my ears and a basic EQ sounded the best, let me know that as well. To me, the biggest benefit of these automatic EQ plugins basically comes down to the ability to have a quick alternative perspective on your mix. I don't necessarily think these will always solve everyone's problems all the time, but sometimes it's nice just for another perspective. I want to remind you that in the description is a link to download my free mixing cheat sheet. Go and grab that. You can print it off, set it on your desk when you're mixing your next song. Get you a bunch of really good reference starting positions. My name is Bobby Balo. I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Rayton Productions, and I'll see you in the next video.